Good afternoon. I was incredibly pleased to be asked last week to come and talk today and discuss matters with Will, because I'm known to be passionate about many things in life. In fact, there's virtually nothing that I do not have passionate views about. But one thing that I am truly passionate about is tutoring, the pluses and minuses. I should say that I come from this with, if you like, a very, very narrow perspective. Falkner House is a highly selective school. It's girls only. It's 4 to 11. Some of my pupils will probably be tutored. I wish that none of them were tutored externally. If a child is having a small problem, let us say with fractions into decimals, I am fully ready for one of that child's class teacher to assist with giving them some extra help. That is, a little bit of extra help one-on-one can be a great thing. But ultimately, I see tutoring as corrosive. I see it, although I know Will's excellent staff would not be in any way wishing to do this, but I see it as ultimately undermining implicitly a child's confidence in their teachers, because your child being tutored is being told that the teacher is insufficient. It's not enough. It also reduces, in many ways, I feel, the ability for children to think for themselves. A vast number of tutors will spend time going through past papers and assisting with a child's homework. The main purpose of homework is to learn to do something for yourself, not to be guided through it. And above all, I see in London a terrible trend that a parent whose child is doing absolutely fine at an excellent school, but they are not top of the class. They are doing absolutely fine, they're trying hard, they're being well taught, and they're middle of the pack. There is a terrible, terrible tendency of London parents to think that if you pay enough, your chihuahua will turn into an Alsatian. It won't. My job is to make them the best possible chihuahua or the best possible Alsatian. And you cannot, just by pouring money at something and having more tutoring time, change your child's nature. And I am talking, of course, from the perspective of a school where I truly believe that the teaching is outstanding, that there is no more that can be added. And I see the children go home at the end of the day or after their netball matches, their swimming teams, they're banjaxed, they've had it. There is nothing more to give. And less is more. And these children have to have time to play, to do nothing, to play with their My Little Ponies. I'm talking girls here, to do their Lego, to do their jigsaws, to read, to dream, to imagine. And ultimately, parents cannot delegate. It is for a parent to be exciting and being involved in their child's education. You, the parent, are the person who has skin in this. You are the person that knows that if you've been talking about quarters of the pizza or the apple on Monday, and that you're having a orange on Tuesday, that you can move into eighths. The tutor has no idea what you ate on Monday when he's got the tutoring lesson on Tuesday. And you've got the skin in it. And you need to believe in yourselves as parents, that you can add far more to your child than any tutor can. But I know that Will vehemently disagree with this. And so I leave it to Will to argue for the opposition.
Thank you very much, Anita. I come from a similarly narrow background in that I am not a trained teacher, and I got into private tuition like most private tutors working today did, which is by coming to see someone like me and pitching your academic credentials and then somehow convincing them that you might have a crack at this education thing. I did that with Charles Bonas when I started working for him. My CV actually never got turned over, but that was for different reasons. We went to the same school, so that was all the qualification I needed back then. Happily, the tuition market has seen huge professionalisation since then, and although I'm speaking with Anita earlier, I submit that there are still plenty of rogue operators in the business, and one of the things that we hope to do with our tutors is to iron out a lot of those issues and to improve the quality provision that all these tutors offer. One of the big bugaboos that I have about schools being hypercritical of tuition, and I'm open to criticism, is that schools themselves are creating endless series of tests. I would really like there to be less, and I mean this sincerely, because I'm lucky enough to put people into schools as well as tutor them, but I would like there to be less testing and less pressure on parents with tuition. It's very difficult as a school to say to the parents, look, you've got these 11 plus tests going up, but we're doing everything we possibly can at school. You really don't need to do anything at home. Because firstly, they look left and right down their street, and the other people in the class say, do you have a tutor? And the other parents going, yep, we've got a tutor. So they're panicking. Everyone else has got one. So if I don't have one, I must be at a disadvantage. And that's a real problem. But that's not a problem with the tutoring industry. That's a parent-led problem. And actually, you know, schools are right to do something about that. So that's an issue that we agree on, I think. The other problem is the psychometric element of the pretest that a lot of the senior schools are doing now. The senior schools swear blind that these tests are untutorable. Now, in one sense, that's partly true because they're aptitude tests. They're sort of psychometric. They used to be reserved for MI5. We now roll them out for 10-year-olds, which is really cruel. But the simple fact is, if you sit a child down, and I'm afraid, you know, this is past paper time, and you drill them through some verbal reasoning and non-verbal reasoning exercises, and you look at how they're scanning information on a page, and you time them, and you introduce them to a bit of pressure through that time, are they going to be better prepared than a child that hasn't done that? Highly probable. It'd be a great pity for schools to start doing that in-house all the time. That's not education. It's a really quite unpleasant form of drilling. So I'd like to see those tests reduce. Do I think in any sphere that tutoring can help gain entry into different places? Yes, it can, although I completely agree you cannot train a Chihuahua to be an Alsatian. And hopefully we and other similar agencies are doing all we can to spot those parents who are asking too much of their children and who are putting in place tuition that shouldn't be there in the first place. What we as agencies should be doing is offering tuition as a support to what happens at school. I'd love if we could all have more communication with the schools, but they probably don't have the time because they're busy doing a very good job of teaching. But it would be nice to see tutoring companies and schools interact more. The main thing I'll finish on is that the psychometric tests are one of the things that have driven a lot of tuition, and actually tuition is not very good for that because of the drilling element. But I do believe that private tuition can be a great additional service in the right way, done correctly, to any child's education. And I think we'll open up to the floor for some questions.
What I thought we might do is we'll ask you if you have any questions, and then these two might have a debate. So has anyone got a question for the point we've got to at the moment? Has somebody got microphones? Yep. Borrow mine.
Anita, I wholeheartedly agree with your view, because I think...
Sorry, I can't hear you very clearly.
I wholeheartedly agree with your view because I think children don't have enough time to be children at the moment. However, not all schools necessarily operate as well as yours does or has the teaching calibre that your school has. So do you think that there may be a role for tutors where you have a child that's in the state sector, where teachers are being challenged on a daily basis?
I totally understand that.
Anita, can you repeat?
I can repeat, yes. If were a child to be in a school, maybe state or independent, where you don't feel that the teaching is either, I mean, if you're in the state sector, why should you be preparing a child for 11 plus English and maths exams, which are completely different from SATs exams that you are preparing children for? If you're in that situation, I totally understand that you want to go to somebody who knows about what your child is going to be facing. I totally get that. But I would also add, just in with what Will said, that there are a lot of rogue operators out there, and it is incredibly important that any parent does extreme due diligence in what is the teacher's expertise in the in the exams in question. I saw, in fact, in my own eyes on Friday, one of my children who I discovered was being tutored, and she came in very proud with a piece of work that she'd done that she wanted to show her teacher, so we'd got, to some extent, liaison between tutor and school. The only, unfortunately, the tutor had said wonderful use of imagery, fantastic. The only trouble was that it was a comprehension question and the child hadn't answered the question. So therefore, the tutor was saying it was wonderful, but actually the child would have probably scored 0 marks. So thus, it wasn't a very good tutor. So only you as a parent, if I had any child being tutored, I would want to be monitoring unbelievably closely what was actually happening. But I totally endorse that you are your parents' champion, you are your child's champion, and you need to be absolutely convinced that they are being properly prepared. And with Will's reference to psychometric testing, certainly at Falkner House, and I'm sure, I would imagine with all the other similar schools preparing children for psychometric testing, we prep the children as best we can. You're right, Will, it's not education, but it doesn't have to form a large part of the week. It's slivers that go into it, but certainly prep schools pride themselves surely on preparing children. But thank you.
I'd just like to say on that point as well that if you're in a school where that they're openly not preparing you for a particular entrance exam somewhere else because it's not what their job is, then obviously specific help is essential. The questions that you should be asking your tutoring agency should be about what sort of preparation their tutor will have done beforehand. You should be asking the tutor whether you see their lesson plan when they arrive. What are they intending to do? Obviously, their first session is going to be more exploratory. A good agency, such as ours, will be sending you reports from the tutor from each and every session. And, Anita's right. As a parent, you've got to have skin in the game as an educator at home as well, whether you have tuition or not. It's not okay to just have tuition and then leave it be, which sounds a bit daft, but, it's very well publicised, say, the 11 plus for a grammar school entrance, for instance. The information of what the child needs to be capable of doing and how they're going to be tested is very public and open, and you can cross-reference that with what the tutor's doing and really being quite on top of them.
Certainly, we saw a couple of tutors that were being used by quite a few parents, and it was very evident to me on the first assessment that they did of my daughter that they were a hothouse for tutoring and putting the child through lots and lots of tests, high pressure, which was very, very different to the person we've ended up with, who's a very old school teacher and actually teaches her, and at the outset of a very small assessment recognised where she was hesitating to answer a maths question and then spoke to her about it. And I think as a parent, if you're allowed to be present at the assessment, you can form your own judgment as well.
Just as a follow-up to that, Will, can you very quickly do your own good schools guide on what to look for in a good tutor? Not totally with reference to Bonas MacFarlane, but you may use it as an example. Just the sort of 5 things you should look for.
Yeah, well, previous experience, peer reviews. They should be able to give you references from other parents. And you should be looking for a tutor who has a good, well, if you want top end, really a good 100 odd plus hours of tuition at the specific age in the subject that you require. Little simple things like you'd apply to many things you're looking for in life. They're turning up on time, are they well presented? When you speak to them on the telephone, are they, have they thought about what they're going to do? What do they arrive with? They should have materials, just as you'd expect to walk into a classroom at your child's school in the morning and see the teacher laying things out on the desks. They should have resources. They should have thought in advance about what they're going to do. What are their attainment targets for their session? So ask them, what are you going to do at the end of the session? What are you going to be able to tell me happened when we're finished? And what are you going to do, therefore, next time? And it should be, reasonably responsive so that, if something didn't work out in a session, they're coming to you when they leave and say, look, this is a bit shaky, actually. So what we're going to do next time is going to go back a bit in that concept. We're going to start a bit lower down and build back up again until we get where we're going. Is that 5?
I think that would do very nicely. Can we have another question?
Oh, hi. That would be a question for Mrs. Griggs. You had the best results last year and the previous years to send the girls, for example, to St. Paul's Girls or St. Mary's. And obviously you're saying some of the girls might, for specific needs, may have a tutor, but this is not what you would like your girls to have. And actually, they are wonderful, happy, very bright girls. So do you have a magical recipe to achieve that?
Well, you're very kind. I always like to think that we have the best possible children, we have the best possible parents, and you are trying to fill children full of what I call meaningful self-confidence. And meaningful self-confidence is not thinking that you're going to win the 100 metres when in practice you've come last in the 100 metres for the last 4 times at sports day, but it's believing in yourself, in what you can do. It's having teachers who have been with you for a long time, who've known the children for a long time, who believe in the children, and who are, I laugh when I see that resilience is a modern day thing, that we're all trying to fill children full of resilience. You can't just give children resilience like sugar. It should be built into the DNA of a school and to the DNA ultimately of a family. That we're just talking about my mother initially. I have learnt, I would say, all of this from my mother, who of all insults that I was to be given as a child was told, do not be feeble, darling. And it's that can-do approach to everything, that if the bus breaks down in Battersea Park, you run home. If it's snowing, you walk to school if you can't get the car out. And that you are giving that to the children from when they are tiny, and that also you are showing a child that their best is good enough, plenty good enough. And that you are also, in my view, not asking a child to give their best every hour of every day that they are at school. We don't as adults. We don't in our jobs. We know when it's crucial to throw everything into it. And it's all those little things that I think breed success for a child.
There seems to be a growing number of high street offerings on tutoring, such as Kumon, other ones with a sort of blue and yellow logo I've seen about. Are any of these any use?
Kumon specifically could be a bit careful. It's not really private tutoring in the sense that we're talking about. It's a course, and it's group attended normally, and you get sent home with a lot of work. Forgive me, this is not gospel because I'm not fully a favourite. From what I've seen from Kumon mathematics over the years, and actually it's been around quite a long time, Kumon. There is one, just to take that example, there's one standout problem with Kumon, which as far as I've seen, there's not much conceptual teaching of mathematics going on, and also they use a different symbology to what is used in the classroom. And I think that's very confusing for children. It can be quite good for drilling kids who are reasonably mathematical for endless mental arithmetic, but actually there's not a huge amount of use to that, and it's much better to teach maths conceptually than by rote, and I think Kumon falls into rote learning. I'm afraid I don't have any knowledge of Kumon's English programme, so I won't comment on that. High street offerings are, in like most industries, dangerous. You need to look at what they're doing, what they're saying that they do, how they differ, and how they're policing it. How are they recruiting tutors? How is it being delivered? So, I know what we do, and it's personal, it's one-on-one, and it's in the home. And that's, controllable, and we do everything we can to make it as controllable as possible. But when you're going into a centre, then obviously, you need to look at their documentation and how they're recruiting their staff, etc.
Is there a difference in what to think and how to think for a child?
Sorry, say that again?
Is there a difference in what to think and how to think?
That's quite a big question. You mean, is there a difference in how they're actually going about their thought processes, or what content they're thinking?
Analysis, etc.
Yeah, absolutely. But that's a question less to do with tutoring and more to do with how the curriculums are being established at schools and the methods of teaching that are going on there. Is there something you'd like to specific about within that question to do with tuition?
Tuition, yes. I suppose the what to think, how to think idea would be this psychometric testing.
Well, the idea of psychometric testing is that there's not a huge amount of thought involved. It's an aptitude test that is looking at what, well, in theory, innate aptitude that child has in certain areas, namely spatial awareness, verbal reasoning. There isn't an awful lot of credit given to critical inquiry, if you like. That comes a bit later on in a child's education.
What is verbal reasoning? What is non-verbal reasoning? What's the difference?
Very good question. Verbal reasoning focuses on literacy, so looking at language. Non-verbal reasoning is sometimes described as spatial awareness, but it's actually a broad term. There's quite a lot of coding in it. There's quite a lot of coding in verbal reasoning, actually, but it's alphanumeric in verbal reasoning. And it looks at associations, it targets vocabulary. It's quite broad-ranging in both senses.
Are these concepts coming in or going out?
Anita would like to take it.
I think they're permanent.
I think probably what what I'm guessing is, meaning is people have been talking about IQ, which is measuring IQ, looking at verbal and non-verbal reasoning since when? I think first talking about this 1940s, 30s. So getting on for 100 years. The importance of it, I think probably the importance that's given to it will probably go in waves. I mean, just looking at sheer scholastic importance, I see verbal and non-verbal reasoning results as generally a reasonable guide to a child's performance in English, maths, history, and so on. I very rarely see low verbal and non-verbal reasoning scores attached to a child who's coming top in English and top in maths. So for me, it gives you a kind of framework, and I have the children doing them routinely. So if you get rogue results, like a child coming top in verbal reasoning and bottom in maths, it gives you, or non-verbal, it's sort of starting to give you alarm bells, is how I view it. And it is certainly not measuring an awful lot of things which are going to be incredibly important in all of our children's lives, that's for certain. I mean, it's not going to show any of the emotional intelligence, it's not going to show anything to do with grit, persistence, it's not going to show anything to do with artistic talent, so it does not show you an awful lot of things. But as to its fashion, it probably moves around, I would say.
Lucy Elphinston, headmistress of Francis Holland School, Sloane Square. There's a difference, isn't there, between prepping and coaching and pushing a child to get from, say, third place to first place in a race, and then forever struggle in the set or class that child finds themselves at senior school. But children who have specific difficulties may need some perhaps temporary scaffolding or support for a short while to help them overcome those difficulties. And I speak as a mother of 4 dyslexic children now grown up, so I know what it's like that if they hadn't perhaps received some sort of help and support at crucial moments in their life, they might forever have languished on the scrap heap. And I'm in favour of children who are struggling and have different ways of learning to be given support and encouragement, which schools might not be able to give, just given the expertise that's required and the time that's required. And I'm all in favour of expert tuition being given, and I mean it needs to be people, tutors, who have experience and perhaps training in these specific learning difficulties in helping and scaffolding those children, but not necessarily forever. It may be just to get them over a particular time in their life.
Absolutely agree. I sort of have to talk about our business slightly here, but I started out in special educational needs underneath my mother at the Dyslexia Teaching Centre in Kensington. And one of the things that Bonas MacFarlane and the Centre have always tried to do is to get more in-home access to expertly coached tutors who've been overseen by specialist therapists in special educational needs into the home, because as you, and some parents might not know this, but special educational need therapists don't tend to travel, and they stay fixed, and it's not that convenient, and actually there's not many places in London offering it outside of schools anyway. So that's something we've always been really keen on trying to help with, and going back slightly into sort of, kids who might not have a specific learning difficulty, but might have a specific problem. One thing I've often heard teachers criticise tutoring of in the world of mathematics tutoring has been, well, the problem is that, you know, the tutor's teaching them a different way they were doing it in class. Well, I'm really bored of hearing that, because if it's not working how they're being taught in class, teach them a different way. And mathematics...
I'm taking a sharp intake of breath here.
Yeah, no, I heard. But mathematics is... my training was in dyscalculia, and one of the things, or teaching dyscalculics, and one of the things that I saw very early on is that there is a tendency in some maths classrooms in prep schools that, you know, fair enough, there's a line of best fit and you have to choose the method to teach. But I don't see why it's a problem to break away for the child who certain methods just doesn't fit the way their maths brain works when you can give them another one. I appreciate if the tutoring's done badly, there can be confusion, which is why I'm very pro tutors talking to schools and form teachers.
Anita, do you want to come back on that?
Yes, I think I would, again, going back to your first question, again, I would, with a special educational need, I would be doubly careful as to the qualifications and the experience that tutors have. I mean, again, talking about different methods, if with dyscalculia, we are talking about, I believe passionately, in keeping to practical objects, and that one should never be saying they ought to now not need concrete objects to be able to help them to do maths. But equally, I do despair, this is perhaps a slight side point, that the child that's been taught horizontal addition at school, which is a pretty well tried and tested way of doing it, of being taught vertical addition far too soon by an inexperienced tutor who is just doing that because horizontal addition hasn't worked, so let's try vertical, without any underpinning of it. And as a personal throwaway, my own probably dyscalculic daughter, who went on to read English at Cambridge, was sent out by a very well-known tutoring agency when she was on the classic tutor path of a first from Cambridge being dispatched out round London while she was at law school, was in fact, she said the one thing she could not do was teach maths. What was she sent out to do? Teach maths. And it was too late to stop it, but you are absolutely right, Lucy. These children do need extra. I'm sure Will has some fantastic people to help with the extra, but one needs to be very, very cautious. And I've also seen children, and this is again which the whole financial underpinning of the tutoring agency is that these children are kept going for too long, and that parents are told that they've improved massively, when in practice they haven't. And with all the tutoring, Will saying it can benefit, me saying ultimately it can't, we have to realise there's no evidence for either of this. So one has, as a parent, to make one's own best judgment.
Will, do you want to come back on that it doesn't, you stay there too long? Financially?
Yeah, you know, I can't argue against that. Obviously, that's a, you know, it's a profit generating business, and so, you know, yeah, if there's any tendency, I guess the tendency is that the tuition continues. I'd like to think, though, and I know we make a huge effort to do this, we might not get it right every minute of every day, that, you know, something that Charles instilled in me when I started working for him is that a good tutor should be getting fired as fast as possible. Because you go in and you've got a problem to fix, and you fix it. You're not there to hang around, to be a crutch, to constantly support, to do the homework for them. We, our agency, believe in proper education. We don't believe in that. We want to leave behind a group of self-motivated, independent learners who carry on without any tuition once they've, you know, got through the hurdles that they needed to get through. So that's very important to us. And you know, it's sad to hear, as a member of the industry, about the experience of Anita's daughter and being sent out to do something she expressly said she couldn't do, and then that she was then offered out to a parent. You know, it's deceit, and it's a shame, and it is out there, and we need to all work together to sort of get rid of as much of that as possible.
I had another question, which is actually for both Mr. Petty and Mrs. Griggs. Mr. Petty, we were said that the parents who went to ask you for help for tutoring, you were amazingly able to get those children into the best academic school or boarding school. Would you be in a situation to do so, for example, for Falkner House, which is a school very academic, as you know, and the 4+ is coming for the girls? And the part of the question for Mrs. Grigg is, if you have a little girl coming to your assessment, obviously, and that has been highly tutored, would you see it? And is it, well, I suppose, know what you're looking for? And where would you stand, basically?
Well, with the 4+ assessments, I don't know if anybody in the room is concerned with these. I mean, I have devised my assessment, I don't know about the other schools which do 4+, to be hopefully as untutorable as it possibly can be. And I think maybe Bonas MacFarlane, I think are truly honourable in this, and I think you do turn people away who want tutoring for 4+, I think.
Yes.
Which is brilliant. Clearly, again, you only know what you think you know. So Lucy will say at Francis Holland that she can detect the tutored children. I hope that I could detect them as well, because what I'm looking for, I don't think can be tutored for. But am I always going to be able to see through it? Is Lucy always going to be able to see through it? I don't know. Both of us will have devised tests that we do the best that we can. And I sincerely hope that nobody is doing that to their 4-year-olds, because I think it's insanity. But I hope so.
Yeah, that phrase, highly tutored 4-year-olds, is pretty scary. Do we advise parents with 4+ children what the schools are looking for? Yeah, sure, absolutely. We tell them in the way that Anita's just told you what she does at her school. So occasionally there might be, you know, in a non-English speaking family where English isn't spoken in the home, you might argue that it could be a sort of educated nanny who's a native English speaker, but nothing that you could possibly say was tuition per se should be happening at that age on a one-on-one basis. No way. And the schools will spot it at that age. But, you know, it can be well hidden. That's the other problem. If you go a bit older, 7 and 8+, I know that Collet Court and Westminster Under were getting so fed up with not being able to spot who'd had one and who hadn't, but they knew that their very successful unnamed outfit on a Saturday morning was doing these 7 and 8+, not me, I had done 7 and 8+ training. So they just simply said to each child that they saw without mum and dad in the room, what did you do on Saturday mornings? To which most of them went, oh, I go to this lovely class, we do 7 and 8+ training. So, you know, it is difficult to detect, but at 4+, it just shouldn't be happening, period.
A question to Mrs. Griggs. If a parent puts their faith in a school that's highly academic and selective and doesn't believe in tutoring, but doesn't want to be complacent either in such a competitive market and world, what is your threshold for reporting to a parent that the child is in trouble? Do we wait until that child is really underperforming, or do you let us know when that child is getting the B's and not the A's, or the A's, not the A+? I'm not sure.
Any good school ought to be, well, my goal for the children is ultimately, I'm on the same side as the parents. I want the absolute, clearly, I want the best for the children. I want them to have their best choice of secondary schools. Now, I've got skin in this, and if I actually thought that a Falkner House girl would benefit from tutoring, why wouldn't I say so? It's totally in my interest to say so. So I will be, if your daughter is with me, I will be liaising with you the whole time. Now, ultimately, I, odds on, will not be saying she needs tutoring. If we think she needs help from our Falkner House staff, maybe that's an extra Maths Plus session after school, which is for our most talented maths children. There are times when I think I should extend the school day, but you're basically extending it for that. If I think that a bit of one-on-one maths when the rest of the class are doing music, I will suggest that. Now, as to how much reporting, it's very interesting. I had No parent ever thinks they have enough information about their child's progress at school. But in the end, one also has to think, if you know that your child is getting Bs, and I need to tell you if I actually think she could get As, then that's information worth having. If ultimately I think that she's going to carry on getting Bs, and that she's a kind of girl who's trying her hardest and is middle of the pack, in some senses you only need to know to assist your expectations. My job is to give you rational expectations of your daughter. A parent said to me on Friday, but I need to know, only I know how clever he is and what he can achieve. It was of a brother. And I said, yes, but only your child's teacher knows how clever the other 19 are, to know where that puts him in the pecking order of the class. And that how much of what you know, how much can you actually change it? I will tell you if I want you to do more, when she's little and she doesn't get her numbers, that you should be holding up number 8 at breakfast and saying, what's that number? I'll be giving you that feedback. Can you do a bit more reading with her? Can you talk more about words? If I think it can help. But only if I think it's actually going to assist you.